Namaste and greetings. Hello and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson, the founding minister and the spiritual director. If you have questions about what is a teaching center, who is Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson, what is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is metaphysical spirituality? Feel free to send an email to spirituallyintegratederarts@gmail.com. The website with tons of information will be available soon. In the meantime, feel free to follow us, to join us, to subscribe via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our YouTube channel. For more information, as I said, send an email. Look for us. Join us. I look forward to chatting with you more very soon. Much love, appreciation, and all of that. Blessings. Hello and welcome to April. It's almost springtime. Well, actually, it is. Hey, greetings. Just so you know, in case this is your first time, today after the Sunday message, you can join us in the Zoom room. And if you don't have the link, send an email to spirituallyintegratederarts@gmail.com so that the link can be sent to you so you can join us in the after Sunday message fellowship conversation, good time meeting folks. Now, what you see on the screen, April 2nd, today, April 9th, next week, we will not be meeting. Once again, April 9th, Easter Sunday, we will not have an after service gathering. Actually, now, this will still be here, but actually, I will be live and in person in Philadelphia on the 9th. So if you want to come to Philadelphia, send me an email and let me know. I'll let you know where I will be and all that good stuff. Anyhow, we should be resuming later on in the month. But just know today, after the Sunday message, you can join us over in Zoom. Now, if you are ready, everybody ready? You ready? Then let's get into it. April, the theme, the power of it's one of those words we don't like to say. Vulnerability. The power of vulnerability and what it means to define and align with this power. Whenever we embark on a new adventure, it is important to know where we are and where we're going. Don't be like Alice in Wonderland asking the Cheshire Cat, well, where am I supposed? Well, where are you going? I don't know. Then it really doesn't matter what, like, come on, girl, what you doing? What you doing? What are you trying to do? Right? Where are we and where are we going? Today, we begin this journey towards a greater understanding of what it means to be steeped in the power of vulnerability by exploring what vulnerability is, what it isn't, and why it's important to be vulnerable, to yield into that space and energy of vulnerability. Vulnerability becomes the crucial starting point for authenticity, and connection. The beloved community, connection, authenticity, transparency, a world that works for all. Vulnerability is linked in through and as all of this. To the extent that we begin to foster this vulnerability, this connectivity, this authenticity within ourselves, we can then begin to invite others to do the same. Ready to be vulnerable? So vulnerability, what does it mean to you? Just in general, when you think of vulnerability, what does it mean to be vulnerable? Because oftentimes what it means and what we think it means or what we make it mean are oftentimes two very different things. Vulnerable, capable of being physically or emotionally wounded. Whoa. Capable of being. Well, what isn't capable of being? Open to attack or damage. Well, what isn't open to the possibility of? Everything is capable of being physically or emotionally wounded. Everyone is quote unquote open to, like even Fort Knox, right? Fort Knox, very heavily guarded, very heavily, but is it not still open to? Like, can someone still attempt? Well, then it is quote unquote vulnerable. The potential is there. Now, it's very important to understand that nothing in this says that being vulnerable is being weak. What's capable and what's open to being says nothing about being weak. Breathe. Because it's important for us to get through and get around this whole idea. Now, one of the things that it said, to be open to assault, to assail. Well, what does that even mean? To assail, to attack, to encounter or undertake something energetically, to confront something energetically. Doesn't this apply to everything and everyone? To oppose, to challenge, to criticize, sometimes harshly. So if we were to criticize white supremacy, are we not assailing it? Right? This whole idea, it's important for us to understand that the word in and of itself, the energy in and of itself, is not to be avoided. There is life affirming and there is non-life affirming ways that we approach this whole idea of being vulnerable, being authentic, being willing to connect. And once again, none of this has anything to do with being weak. Stephen Russell says, vulnerability is the only authentic state. Ooh, wait, whoa, ooh, I gotta lean back on that one. What did he say? Ray, what did Stephen say? Vulnerability is the only authentic state. Being vulnerable means being open, which means if I'm not vulnerable, I'm not willing to be open. Being vulnerable means being willing to be open, to be wounded. Because understand that the moment we are open, there is the possibility that our feelings will be hurt, that our, as we would normally say, our hearts may be broken. Someone once said, "'Tis better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all." But being vulnerable means being open for wounding, but it also means being open for the bliss and the joys and the pleasures of love and connection, family and camaraderie, community. Being open to the wounds of life also means being open to the bounty and the beauty of life. Think about, if I am going to be open to this possible relationship, friendship, romance, whatever it is, I am open to the possibility of being hurt, being betrayed, being left, being lied to, being cheated on. The possibility is there, but I am also open to the possibility of years and years of great conversation and love and joy, and it's being open to life, being open to all that life has to offer, not simply saying, well, I would rather be closed off, because the person who is closed off doesn't really get to enjoy anything. There's an old parable of someone who gets arrested and foreign country somewhere eons ago, and they're to be executed for whatever it was that they did wrong. And they're taken out to the yard where the chief executioner says, you get to choose your method of execution. Okay. By arrow, firing squad. By hanging, alligators, or what's behind the door. And for years and years and years and years, people choose the guillotine or the whatever it is. They choose all of those. And then one day someone says, I know what those are. I don't know what that is. I'll take my chances. Are you sure? Yes. But it's untold horrors and ooh, yeah, okay, fine. I don't care. We'll see what happens. And they open the door and it's freedom. Untold horrors because the possibility of exists beyond the door. All of the possibilities of anything that could ever happen to you exist through that door. Each of these, you know what your fate is, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Arrows, beyond a shadow of a doubt. I know what that is. I know what it looks like. I know what that means. That, I don't know. The mystery. So many people would rather be closed off and go with what they know. 'Tis better to be with the devil you know than the one you don't. How many times have we heard or said something similar? It's better to hang out with the enemies you can identify than the, whoa, wait, what? Wait, what? But the moment we close ourselves off, we deny ourselves the possibility of living fully because we are settling for less. Vulnerability is not weakness, as Brene Brown says. It is our most accurate measure of courage. Courage, remember the root of courage, core of the heart. It is our most accurate measure of that which our heart is open to experience, to give, and to receive. Vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability says, I am here and I am willing to experience all. I am willing to give and take. I am willing to live out loud. I know that not everyone's going to like me. I live out loud. I know that not everyone's going to accept me. I live out loud. I know that not everyone is going to, I live out loud. I know that there are going to be critics. I live out loud. I know there are going to be, and I live out loud until such a time as those who criticize now are within the circle. Those who judge are within the circle. Those who are within the circle. Because what did we say before? They drew a circle that shut me out, heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and will had wit to win, and I drew a circle that took them in. That is what it means to be vulnerable. Breathe. Because many of us argue, we fight because we are terrified, because we are ashamed, because we are guilty, because we are all manner of emotional things that we have swallowed and stuffed and buried and hidden away until such time as it must come out. Someone has offended us, but the us that they have offended most often is an egoic image or idea of the self. It's the self that we are attached to, that they have somehow wounded. And when wounded, when afraid, what does the rattlesnake do? And attacks. Most animals, the frightened mouse, when cornered and afraid, will stand up. It doesn't matter that you're 6 feet tall, that you weigh 250 pounds, and it's weighs about half a dime. It doesn't matter. It will hunch up and because it's terrified. Most arguments, 99.9% of the arguments that we have, especially those, now I'm not talking about those heated debates. where we're in it and we're talking about what is God? What does God mean to you? Well, what is this? And what does that mean to you? Now, how do we change? I'm not talking about heated debates for the purpose of elevation and evolution. I'm talking about arguments where you're stupid. I'm stupid. You're stupid. See, you're just like your mother. Your mother's stupid. Excuse, those are rooted in fear. And fear is a denial of being vulnerable. When we are willing to be vulnerable, there is a different level of self that we are connected to. We are connected to our authentic self, our transparent self, our self that says, what you just said, what you just did hurt my feelings. Hurt your feelings. Man up. Boys don't cry. Big boys don't cry. And vulnerability says, I understand why you're saying that stuff from the toxic masculine, the toxic patriarchy. I understand. And yet, and still, my vulnerability says, I'm going to cry. My vulnerability says, I'm going to let you know that my feelings were hurt. My vulnerability says, whatever you do with it is what you do with it. But for my own health and well-being, physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, for my own health and well-being, I must share. I must be vulnerable. I must be open. Brene Brown reminds us it's much easier to say, I don't give a damn, than to say, I'm hurt. Note that it is easier to be on the offensive. I don't give a, I don't care. But yes, you do. No, I don't. Yes, you do. How do you know? Because you wouldn't attack so violently. As Shakespeare said, which many folks reference, the onslaught of people who tend to be very homophobic, and they're all in homophobia, transphobia, homophobia. And oftentimes people will say, methinks thou doth protest too much. Meaning, the fact that you are so gung-ho about this makes me question and wonder if you are not yourself a self-hating gay person. Because it's easier to say, I don't like you. I hate them. It's easier to say that than to say, I don't understand. I don't feel understood. I don't feel seen. I don't feel accepted. I don't feel like I belong. I feel hurt. That's far more difficult and yet 1,000 times more valuable in this thing that we call evolution. Brene Brown goes on to say, when you shut down vulnerability, you shut down opportunity. When you shut down vulnerability, you shut down possibility. When you shut down vulnerability, you shut down potentiality. When you shut down vulnerability, you shut down God. You shut down the ability of source and spirit to be fully what it is as you. When you shut down vulnerability, you shut yourself down. And in shutting yourself down, how could you not be shutting down what you are? You are not allowing what it is to be present in, through, and as you fully. You have turned the dimmer switch down. Instead of letting the light shine as brightly as it could, you turn it down. Because I don't want to be seen, you turn it down. I don't want to be judged, you turn it down. And some of us try to turn it off. When you shut down vulnerability, you shut down the opportunity to create a world that works for all, the opportunity to live out loud, the opportunity to be authentic, the opportunity to embody God, the opportunity to live and love, to enjoy this thing called life. When you shut down vulnerability, breathe. Now, what is this whole idea of opportunity? Because we're going to take a slight detour. Opportunity. When you think of opportunity, what comes to your mind? Opportunity generally refers to a set or a series of circumstances that makes something possible, right? There's a job that I want to apply for. A set or series of circumstances, they post the job. Here's the requirements. I submit a resume, CV, letter of recommendation, references, a set or series of circumstances that make something else possible. These things happen that make possible for me to get this job, to do this job, to have this job, whatever. Opportunity. And when we are shutting down vulnerability, we shut down the set or series of circumstances. We close off. We narrow the funnel so that fewer get through, which means less of something is also, wait a minute, wait. So if I shut down vulnerability, it means I'm shutting down opportunity, which means I'm shutting down or I'm lessening this series or circumstances that make this other thing that I want possible, which means I'm limiting myself of the possibility of experiencing that. So I want to be a millionaire. I want a better job. But when I shut this down, I'm reducing the possibility of that. And check this out. You still may become a millionaire, multimillionaire. But because you're shutting down vulnerability, you're shutting down opportunity, you're going to be a millionaire, multimillionaire, but you're empty inside. You're still not living out loud. You're still not living in alignment with love and joy because you're hoarding. There's never enough. You got to do more, get more, stand on more people's backs to get it, to grab it, to keep it, to protect it, to get more. Is that really? Breathe. Opportunity. Series, set of circumstances, conditions, situations. Wait, whoa. What'd you say? You said conditions. Yes. Why do you ask? Because in Science of Mind and Spirit, we talk about the condition, the experience, which is why we do spiritual mind treatment in order to change or shift the conditions, the experiences. We have spiritual practices for the purpose of shifting and evolving the external conditions, the external experiences for manifesting and demonstrating. So when we shut down vulnerability and we're shutting down opportunity, then we are also limiting what conditions, we are limiting what experiences we are going to be able to step into in greater and greater degrees. Breathe. Is that possibly why so many people refrain from doing spiritual mind treatment or going to a practitioner? Because going to a practitioner for a prac session means you have to be open to changing your conditions. You have to be open to living out loud, to living your best life, which means being vulnerable. Well, I don't want to be vulnerable. Well, hey, wait a minute. So you're telling me in order to have this, that yes, in order to have the life that you say that you want, whatever that is, vulnerability is a mandatory piece of it. And so rather than do what needs to be done spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, etc., getting my mental equivalents all in, instead of doing all of that, I avoid it. Because the moment I sit in front of a practitioner and ask for prayer about this, and the practitioner does what they do, and there's this, and there's the invitation to practice, my condition has to shift. My external experience has to change, which means I have to change. And that change involves my being vulnerable, and I don't want it. And so I deny the practitioner, I deny myself, I deny spirit the opportunity to show up. fully in my life, as my life, my experiences. I shut it down. I limit, breathe. Because this goes back to the idea of the very power by which you bring non-life affirming conditions into your experience is the very power by which you can also bring life affirming conditions. Breathe. This is my remixed version of something that Holmes said. The very power by which you bring what he referred to as negative, these non-life affirming conditions, is the exact same power that you bring life affirming conditions. Ignorance and misuse of the law of mind excuses no one from the effects, cause and effect. And because there is only God, it affects all of us all the time, every thought, every word, every feeling, every action, all of it, everything, everyone, everywhere. Ignorance of or a misuse of the law of mind excuses no one from its effect, be whatever you call it, good or evil. Doesn't matter what you call it, it is still in effect. Whatever you call it, it is still a demonstration of something that came before, something that is held in mind, something that is held in consciousness, something that the law is saying yes to. There is a direct correlation to it all. So, you want some other life affirming experience in your life? Are you willing to do? Are you willing to change? Are you willing to be open? Are you willing to be vulnerable in order for the law of mind to do what it does to shift and create this effect, this condition, this series of circumstances that then outpicture as your life experience? Are you willing? Breathe. Dr. Holmes goes on later elsewhere to say, there is an irresistible potential pressing against everyone, pressing outward from everyone, pressing to show up in, through, and as everyone for the purpose of self-expression. If we are present to it, if we listen to it, if we look, whatever words work for us, if we listen, we shall hear it. If we look, we shall see it. If we are present, we shall feel it. Not as a voice, not as a thing to see, but as this deep, innate knowingness that is the divine urge, that is God itself seeking to express itself in, through, and as us. You've heard me say many times, whatever is true about God is true about you. And the only God that we will ever truly understand is the one that we embody. And the one that we embody is this divine urge seeking expression. Right? Think about the artist who feels the urge to draw, to paint, to sculpt, to buy a camera, but they don't, because no one's going to like my art, so they never draw. No one's going to like my art, so they never paint. No one's going to like my art, so they never sculpt. No one's going to like my art, so they never dance. No one's going to like my art, so they never write. No one's going to like my art, so they never express that divine creative urge that is wanting to be expressed. So they stifle the song, they stifle the meal, they stifle whatever it is and bury it away and deny themselves the glorious expression of the universe seeking to show up in, through, and as them. There is an irresistible potential wanting to express that divine discontent. Are you willing to yield and let it be? Dr. Holmes says, we should come then to this great reservoir of nature, to this infinite side of ourselves, in full and simple trust, in confidence and faith. Do you come to yourself with trust and faith and confidence? Do you come to that part of yourself where you know this that God is right here, right where I am? Circle, circumference, nowhere, center, everywhere, right where I am, the center of God is. I trust right where I am, God is. I am confident right where God is. I have faith right where God is. I am faith. Faith has me right where I am, God is. Do we approach that aspect of our lives as a great reservoir that can never be depleted? Do we approach that aspect of our lives where we cannot run out of love, we cannot run out of creativity, we cannot run out of ideas, we cannot run out of joy, because it is what the universe is? Do we approach life from this manner? Or are we stuck in the conditioned, indoctrinated idea of there's not enough to go around? You better get yours before somebody else gets it, because opportunity only knocks once. And once it knocks, it goes on about its business, and you're going to get left in the house by yourself. You better do something, boy. Come on, get up, get. Early bird gets the worm. There ain't enough worms out there. Early bird gets it. The late bird don't get the worm. But aren't there enough? Well, I said the early bird. I didn't say gets a worm. I said the early bird gets the singular. There's only one. You need to get it before somebody else gets it. You need to work harder. 90-hour weeks. Work harder. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. All of that is lack and scarcity consciousness. Are we ready to approach the great reservoir of the universe that is showing up in, through, and as us with trust and confidence and faith, knowing who and what we are and what we are capable of? Are we willing to do that? Because if so, then it means being vulnerable. Sometimes we are not going to do it in the first. How many times might I have to enter the 5K before I complete it? How many times might I have to apply for my ideal job before I get it? How many times might I? Yeah, whatever. The point is, do you trust? Do you have confidence? Do you have faith? Knowing that the law says yes, cause and effect. The law of mind and action is always active. And because of what my mental equivalent is doing, I have trust, I am confident, I have faith, and I live accordingly. Rooted and steeped in principle, which means I live from a consciousness of freedom. I live from a consciousness of knowing that the internal and external, the isness and allness of me is free. Our Declaration of Principles, number 5, says, we believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete emancipation or a complete liberty or complete freedom from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. Is it attained by you right now? Are you still working on your emancipation, your liberty, your freedom? What does that mean for you? Are you free in some areas and not others? Is partial freedom freedom? Or is it conditional freedom? Is it Tupperware freedom? What does it mean for you to truly live your life free? Free at last, free at last. Thank God, the isness and allness that you are free at last. Free from the indoctrinated thinking of lack and scarcity. Free from the conditioned thinking of fear and protection and defend yourself from being weak or perceived as weak. Machismo. Free from all of that, so that you are now free to live out loud, free to live your best life, free to fully embody this irresistible divine expression of oneness, breathing itself as you, living itself as you. Freedom. Breathe. What is freedom for you? What is it to you? What does it mean for you to live your life free? Dr. Holmes says, we resist being what, whoa, wait a minute, Ernest, what are you saying, man? We resist being what we really are. What are we? Incarnations of God. We resist being what we really are. We need to accept the fuller expression of the mind that is not just within us, but that the mind that is us. There is only one mind, and that mind is God. And the mind that you use is God, for there is only the one. It is that God mind, the mind that is God. It's not just within us, it is us. We are in it. It's all there is. We need to accept the fuller expression of the mind that is within us, for in its creative flow, through us, in us, and as us, rests our entire future and destiny. The greater person, the more evolved person, the more enlightened person that we are, and the richer, more fulfilling, joyful, blissful, loving life that we desire and deserve to enjoy. We must surrender into, don't resist it, surrender into who and what we truly, really are. Divine incarnations of spirit, of source, of God, of the universe. Breathe. Because in order to understand that, in order to fully, we must be open to a new idea, a new thought about ourselves. And in the having of a new thought about ourselves, we then create new thoughts about a world that works for all, new thoughts about how CSL operates and functions effectively, how new thought shows up no longer as the best kept secret, but as out loud, bold, and proud. We create new opportunities of what it means to eradicate and dissolve, to deconstruct systemic racism, the toxic patriarchy, sexism, homophobia, all of that stuff, when we are willing to have a new idea. Brene Brown says there is no innovation and creativity without failure, without vulnerability. There is no innovation. There is no true creativity without making a mistake. That's why pencils have erasers at the other end. That's why typewriters used to have the whiteout. That's why there's the liquid whiteout now. That's why Mr. Clean, because when Ray cooks, Tracy will tell you, when Ray cooks, there's gonna be mess all over the place, on the floor, on the stove, on the wall, and on the ceiling. How did you get sauce on the Mr. Clean, because there are going to be mistakes. There's going to be messes. And understand that these messes, these failures, do not determine or dictate who and what we are. They are a part of this grand and glorious adventure. Be willing to fall often. Be willing to mess up often. Be willing to explore and experiment often. For that is the birthplace of innovation and creativity, greater vulnerability. What would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? Now, she just mentioned this thing about fail. Now, there's the world's idea of failure, and then there's this divine idea of failure. But what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Either or, doesn't matter right now. If you couldn't fail, whatever the job is, what would you do? Whatever the art is, what would you do? What would you create? What would your relationships look like? If you knew you could not fail, what would you attempt? What would you do? I pushed that question out of my head, she says, to make room for a new question. What's worth doing even if I fail? Whoa. What's worth doing knowing that I will fail occasionally? What is it worth creating a world that works for all, knowing that we are going to fall or fail along the way? Is it worth getting into a relationship if you know that there are going to be occasional hiccups within the relationship? Is it still worth loving? Is it still worth connecting, knowing that there will be misunderstandings? Is it still worth it? Is it worth it to fully embody your divinity, knowing that there will be times when you will forget and slip into collective consciousness once again? Is it still worth it to walk the walk, even though there will be times you have to sit on the bench to rest, to heal? You may even have to backtrack, to go back to pick up something that you dropped along the way that you didn't even realize you dropped. Are you willing? Is it worthwhile to still believe, even if you doubt? Breathe. Vulnerability is a state of emotional exposure that comes with a certain degree of uncertainty. Uncertainty. It involves a person's willingness to accept the emotional risk that comes from being open and willing to love and be loved. Emotional risk from willing to love and be loved. Exposure. Breathe. Now, here's a photographer, and they're doing their photography thing, and you notice this woman, she's got wings made out of fire. Well, is that how does one do this, Ray? It's not Adobe Photoshop, because you can see the gentleman behind her with a stick that's on fire. What he's actually doing, he's painting on the film. How? Through exposure. He's exposing the film to light in a very distinct pattern that creates this exposure, the state of being opened and brought in contact with something or someone, the revelation of an identity, truth, or fact, especially one that is often concealed and oftentimes likely to arouse some form of disapproval. Exposure, being open, being brought in. The film is open to the light, and the light impacts it in a particular way. What are you being exposed to, and what are you exposing yourself to? What are you exposing others to? Possibility, lack, bravado and ego, or vulnerability and willingness, love. We don't have to be perfect the way the world identifies perfection, just engaged and committed, walking the walk, aligning our values with our actions. Breathe. I'm sure at some point in our school career, we all understood and we learned what photosynthesis was. And the specific reason that I'm sharing this concept of photosynthesis is because Adrian Posey says vulnerability lets light in. Photosynthesis, the plants let light in. Vulnerability lets light in. And be ready, there's going to be a remix in a moment. Vulnerability lets the light in. Vulnerability lets the light in. And vulnerability lets or shines your divine light out. Vulnerability lets it in. Exposure, remember what he said, brought in and then out. Let it out. Let it in. Let it out. Plug it. Sorry. Breathe. This week's opportunity to discuss on Thursday night. Even if you don't show up on Thursday night, I strongly encourage you to do this as a spiritual practice. But keep in mind, on Thursday night, you do have the opportunity of joining Tracy and the others to go over this and discuss these questions. 1, what areas of your life are the most challenging to exercise vulnerability? What are you afraid will happen if you are vulnerable? 2, in what ways do you see vulnerability as being an integral part of living an authentic life? In what areas can you begin to exercise being more vulnerable? Are you willing to commit to that today? Right now? Number 3, how can seeing ourselves as individualized expressions of spirit influence our ability and our willingness to be vulnerable, specifically in areas that may be challenging? Breathe. This week's declaration, our affirmation, I will say it first. And if you feel aligned, say it with me on our second go round. I bring my own unique expression to life, and I create a safe space for others to do the same. Together, I bring my own unique expression to life, and I create a safe space for others to do the same. And so it is. Breathe. At this point of our service, we will close with a benediction, a closing intention, a closing prayer. Simply breathing and understanding and recognizing that the isness and the allness that is God is what is breathing this body. It is what this body is. It is what these words are. It's all there is. So it's all of this and so much more. And so as I speak this, I know that it is the universe speaking, the universe resonating, and the law of mind and action saying yes. That means right here and right now, as I declare and affirm what we just declared and affirmed, unique expression of life, safe space for others to do the same. Breathe, because the law says yes. Infinite opportunities pressing in through and as, expressing outward, letting the light in and shining it outward. And the law says yes. Breathe. Divine expression of the one, living, moving, and having its beingness as this divine incarnation. And the law says yes. Breathe. And I know that what is true for me is true for everyone watching. It's true for those who aren't watching. It's still true. As it said, none of us get to escape the law of cause and effect. None of us get to escape the law of mind. None of us get out of this thing called God. It's all there is. And so I speak this declaring health and well-being, vulnerability and joy, the bliss and wonderment that comes from being open to letting it in and expressing it out, showing up in authentic and connected ways to ourselves, to the divine, to nature, to everything and everyone. I speak this knowing that this word applies to all of us because there's only one mind, one life, one divine expression, one divine infinite thing, this thing itself, life itself, joy itself, love itself, the universe itself, called by many names. The energy of it is still the same. And what it is, I am. What it is, we are. What it is. And so I speak this knowing that as this Sunday message comes to a close, this joy, this love, this light, this opportunity to be vulnerable continues with us throughout the rest of the day, throughout the rest of the week, on into our next Sunday message next week. As we walk the walk, divine incarnations of the one, divine incarnations of love and source and spirit, divine and holy 21st century New Thought Good Samaritans, connecting, loving, creating, evolving. And the law says yes. We breathe. Amen. Ashe. Aho. And so it is. Namaste. Blessings. Much love and appreciation, everybody. See you Easter Sunday. Don't forget, if you want to come to Philly and see me live, send me an email and I'll let you know details, time, location, all that good stuff. All right. Love and appreciate you. Live long and prosper.